Welcome to this episode of the Comedy Defect podcast. My name is Winter, I'm a comedian, and this is my show. Those that are new to the show, welcome. Those that are old to the show, thanks for coming back, guys. Happy New Year to you all as well. I hope you had a good Christmas break and a good New Year and you made plans for January. I made a couple of plans in December because things were kind of like getting a bit quiet, to be fair, on all fronts. Being a freelancer, kind of you're in the gigging economy, it's up to, everything slows down, your work slows down. So I made plans and a couple of those things are taken off at the end of January, but I was terrified. As you are, as being a freelancer, you don't know when next paycheck's going to come from. So you're just trying to get things moving. And it's kind of feeling like an actual proper year. I don't know about you, anyone else, but for me, it feels like I kind of back on it again. I'm kind of getting back into the rhythm of life again. Because after the big pause, I know a lot of these episodes are very COVID lockdown related, but I think that it's kind of nice to look back and kind of just see where we were and where we are now. I mean, me personally, I'm starting to feel a bit more like myself again, a bit like, my life is actually, I'm sort of in control of it somehow, apart from the bit of an egg shortage here in Tesco's every time I go down there. But anyway, that's another story. I don't know why. I'm not going to pay 29p for one single egg. I'm not going to do that. I don't care how big those eggs are. I'm not paying 29p for an egg, okay? Anyway, go to the Indian shops. They're way cheaper down there. They got loads of eggs. Anyway, I'm digressing. This episode was recorded in the lockdown with an excellent comedian, Dave Bailey. He's on Instagram, he's on Twitter, he's on Facebook as Dave Bailey Comedian. Dave Bailey Comic on Twitter, so go and check him out there. He also does his own podcast called the Mind Fart Podcast, and that's a musical podcast. Go check that out. I'm not going to say any more now, but I'm going to say is I hope you had a happy January and it was a good start to the new year. I know January's pretty bleak, but you know what? I hope you got through it and you kind of started those resolutions, you kind of got on it and kind of made some progress towards the goals that are going to be happening this year. I know that I've kind of made a good start. I hope you did too. This is an excellent episode, 106, with Dave Bailey Comic on Twitter. So go and check it out. If you ever see him in a bill, you will not be disappointed. He's a very funny guy. So Dave Bailey for episode 106. Enjoy. What is your day job then, Dave?
So, it's really interesting. I hope you're not recording this. Even for a podcast, this is tedious. When you complain to your insurance company?
Yeah.
So if you remain unhappy, it then comes to me.
Right.
And then I can step in and say, actually, no, you need to do X, Y, and Z.
Okay. So you're sort of like the mediator between insurance company and customer if it's still not resolved, right?
Yeah, we're kind of like a last stop to stop someone going to the ombudsman.
Oh,
so
right.
Step in, review everything, listen to all the phone calls,
okay.
And go, actually.
Yeah. Whichever way it falls, yeah?
Yeah, because it costs companies if they go to the ombudsman, so they kind of think it's cheaper to have people like us around. Oh, I can tell you what kind of comp you should be getting in a heartbeat, yeah, whether it's 50 quid or 500 quid. Or...
Nice. That's good, man.
But
so
yeah, thanks to that, there's a budget for equipment, so that when we started working from home, do you guys need anything? It's like a shopping list. You go, I'll have one of those.
Yeah.
I'll have some of those.
And how long have you done that for?
4 or 5 years.
It's a blessing at the moment, to working from home and that.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I'm dreading going back into an office. It's just so good to my commute is literally to the front room. The best.
When you work in the office, were you in cubicles and stuff, or separate things like typical office, just board dividing you?
Oh, it's open planned, which is even worse.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, the other day I said to someone, I've got to the point now, I don't know about you, but I even miss the people that used to annoy me.
Yeah. Just for the sake of getting out of the house. I went to the dentist the other day and I booked this appointment a year ago and I was just I got dressed up for it, man. I was like, I was so excited, man. I was like, the dentist asked me how I was and I was talking for 15 minutes. She's like, actually, I meant to ask you how your teeth were. I was like, okay then, all right then.
When you say dressed up, are you in Speedos and a bow tie?
Well, usually I go in tracksuit bottoms and just a hoodie or something, But this time I went in jeans. I was like, I kind of made the effort, I had a shower. Dentist usually, I just turn up in anything, you know what I mean? I got dogs, so I go walk the dogs. I turn up in covered in mud and stuff. I won't have boots on, but you know what I mean? Just, the stuff you kind of wear around the house that you can't do stuff.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty incredible. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've found that comedians generally, we are not really, part of the role is we're observing. we're not really fond of people general. We're kind
Yeah.
of one step back and like to observe things. But I think even us now are going, oh, I miss just the general public being
Yeah.
around.
Yeah. I know usually you just get all your social interaction at a gig, and that was like about 50 to 80 people perhaps in a room above a pub. You're like, oh, that's great. All at once, listening to my stories. And now it's like still at home with the dog. Do you live with anyone, Dave?
No, I'm a single at the moment. Well, have been since
Yeah.
since lockdown started.
So have you like kind of started to anthropomorphize various objects yet, or got a football with like some like grass and top of it, drawn a face on it, anything?
Have you been watching Castaway?
Yeah, of course, mate. Like about 10 years ago. But yeah.
No, although my youngest nephew did ask me if I talk to myself. I think he was concerned because I live alone. He's like, so do you talk to yourself during the day? I thought, yeah, but I did that before this. A human thing, isn't it? You suddenly talk to no one that's there. What about you? I found this third lockdown the toughest. The other two were kind of all right.
Yeah.
Now it's getting ridiculous.
I did find the same. I was like, motivation was really tough. I even turned to self-help for this one. I've had a book in the corner of the room called Getting Things Done. It's written by David Allen. I had that and I was like, I will not read that. I do not need to read it. I'm pretty motivated. I don't need to. And I was like, right, third lockdown, I was like, right, I need to read this book. I'm going to just get it done. It's really annoying me. And so I had put a plan on the wall of all the things I got to do. And I'm slowly getting through it, like, you know, but it's finished the book, but had a list of things to do now. So it's like, I don't know if it's helped me. It's just kind of made, I guess, get everything out of your head onto the page. And then you can like just feel the judgment of that page every day, slowly destroying your self-esteem.
That's why books are overrated. Shouldn't read them.
They're dangerous. They're dangerous.
Too much knowledge. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, I really liked school. I know that's quite a rare thing for a comedian to say, or anyone to say.
Where did you go to school?
I went to school in a little village called H-O-O-O, but I grew up in Leicester in the late 80s, early 90s, and this again perhaps is the comedian in me. I never took school seriously. To me, school was kicking about with my mates, having a laugh, and then doing some work if I was told to by a teacher. And so I kind of missed that kind of... I was saying to a friend, you know all this... Have you done a lot of socially distanced walking with friends? I really like it. It's like being a kid again, where you just go out and hang out, and that's all you're doing. It's not like you're going to like a wedding or some kind of social engagement where you have to do a thing and you don't actually get to hang out with your friend. Or you go to see a film or something, you don't actually speak to your friend. If you go for a walk, it's just you and your friend and just a random conversation. You think, oh, I forgot. This is what friendships used to be. Is Dave in? Can we go out? And then you just spend the day doing nothing, really.
Drinking, eating, just staring at the wall. We watch a film, anything. Yeah, that's it. Otherwise, like you get to a stage. I feel like even before lockdown, I was like, you got to go somewhere. Why am I going there? Okay, I've got to maybe go record a podcast or go to a gig. There was always a purpose. Now it's just, as you say, there's a nice bit of sort of like just take it easy. Just as you know, there's nothing, you can't do anything. Did you start doing drama there as well, or did you like have any idea you were going to do comedy?
Well, I went to a comp, right? We had a drama department.
Yeah.
But the drama department was a depressed PE teacher who used to drink in the lesson. And one of my earliest memories of it, being told that I was shy, basically, and then realising, oh, I don't think I am. I think I'm just choosy. Like, I'd be quite quiet in class, so I certainly wasn't a class clown or anything like that. I would be more the person writing for the clown. So I would write something down and then they would say it loud, or I would say something reacting to what a teacher had said. The person next to me would then say it out loud.
Nice.
Or I'd be in a little group in the corner with like 3 or 4 mates, and I'd say something just for them to make those people laugh. Because, I mean, this sounds like a serial killer now, but that's because I knew I could make my 3 friends laugh, whereas if I said this out loud, those people over there are going to be confused. That person isn't going to get the joke. The teacher's going to be pissed off. So I was already working out, like, I'm just going to play to my audience. These are the people I care about. These 3 people here. I'll just make them laugh. That's fine. But yeah, the drama, I can make it very clearly. As I say, the teacher wasn't in charge of the class. So everyone was mucking about, literally chairs out of windows, people just getting up and leaving. And over the course of a term, we had to come up with a play. So obviously we didn't do that because we were just kids mucking about and no teacher was in charge. On the day we had to do the play, I stood up and improvised a play. And to this day, I think that's where the stand-up started, when I suddenly realised, oh, I can do this. And I was literally telling other kids, moving other kids. They were reacting to what I was saying, but I was just in complete control of it. And at the end of it, the teacher went, that was improvised, wasn't it? I went, yeah. Because obviously you could tell that other people weren't even trying. And I wasn't expecting any of you to do a play, and you managed to just do that.
Wow.
And then I did that a couple more times, but because of the comp and the way it wasn't encouraged. It was just they had to have a drama department.
Right.
But I look back now and go, oh, that was probably quite a pivotal moment of just like, oh, this is a thing that apparently I can do and comes quite naturally to me, yet others... I can still see the faces of the kids going, oh, where's this come from? He's usually really quiet. Suddenly I'm the centre of attention.
Yeah, that's great. Just waiting for your moment, like just observing, and now's the time. Here we go.
Yeah, definitely. And also that feeling of, I don't know about you, that bit, it's the bit I'm missing a lot at the moment. That bit, 30 seconds before your name gets called at a gig. I've never, this is double negative now, I've never not done a gig where when my name's about to be called, I think, what are you doing, Dave? This is insane. Why are you about to go up there and try and be funny?
Yeah.
And then the moment I get to the mic and say something and get the first laugh, I think, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be. This just feels completely natural now. But kind of glad that I have that little... To me, that means that's a healthy thing. As a human, you should be going, just checking in with yourself, going, are you aware you're about to do this? Just checking. That's fine. If you want to do this, that's fine. But I'm just checking you're aware of what's about to happen.
Yeah.
Which is why when a lot of people go, oh, I don't know how you must be so brave. You mean you must have had that.
Yeah.
It's always an awkward conversation, isn't it? It's like, I'm not brave. I'm quite selfish and arrogant to want to do this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's the worst nightmare. I can't think of anything worse. That's the things what makes us slightly different as comedians. It's like, no, but we like that. We like that adrenaline, that stepping over the cliff edge of like, well, let's see what happens now.
Are your instinctive brains going, this is not natural. You shouldn't be doing this. All these threats are looking at you and could cause you harm mentally and emotionally, isn't it? Really, that's what it is. And you go, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I'm going to do it. Because you know what? Because I like to walk to the edge and see how if I can look over. So you've been nominated for the BBC Comedy Award like twice.
Yes, well, to a degree, yeah. I got through to the competition.
With observational storytelling and improv. Do you remember the first joke that you wrote before all that?
So I'm really into my music. So in my teenage years, comedy and music, those were the two things, and football as well, but mainly music and comedy. Yeah. I worked out very quickly that comedy is something more natural to me. Music, I get confused. I don't know how it works, basically. I can play a few chords, but it's too much hard work. So I chose comedy. I wanted to be a DJ. So I did some work experience for BBC South East Radio. I got a qualification in sound engineering. And then I got rejection letters from pretty much every radio station in the country. So I was doing hospital radio, which is as depressing as it sounds.
Is that
You're literally next to the morgue.
Where was that hospital?
Maidstone Hospital in Kent.
Right.
And I used to do a show on a Sunday afternoon, and it was a sports show. So basically just go through the football results, basically. I did it with someone else, and he went off to be a journalist, and they asked me, basically because no one else wanted to do it, if I wanted to do the show on my own. I started doing it. I did it for about a year, and I realised I was essentially doing stand-up. So there was a microphone, I was telling jokes, but it was so frustrating that I can't hear the laughter.
Of course.
I know that joke's funny, but I'm just a man in a room talking to myself. So out of frustration, I filled in the BBC Comedy Awards thing, went into the production studio thing, recorded 5 minutes of stand-up of just random ideas I've had for years, like since I was a kid. Recorded it, burnt it onto a CD. That's how far back we're going. Sent it off, thought nothing more about it. Then about 6 months later, me and my flatmate at the time came back. We had a voicemail, and it was someone from the BBC saying, oh, congratulations, you're through to the BBC New Comedy Awards. I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
I've now got to do this. And my mate, to be fair, my mate picked up the phone, rang the number and said, tell them you're doing it.
Yeah.
So I rang back. And then it was in some kind of wine bar in, I want to say Reading. And I turn up. Now, you'll probably know this because you're a comedian. Zoe Lyons?
Yeah.
She was one of the other nominations.
Wow. Tough lineup, to be fair.
And I can remember so clearly, and this is kind of the naivety of it, I look back now and realise every other comedian on that night had done hundreds and hundreds of gigs. And when I said, this is my first gig, they looked at me like I'd landed from another planet. Like, shut up. No, it's not.
I love that. I love that. That's brilliant. That just, you see people say that at gigs sometimes and you're like, no, it's not. But that is brilliant. That's a brilliant origin story. I love it. Go on.
And so, yeah, so I did the gig and I can remember, I don't know about you, do you remember the first time you did the gig where you could hear your voice coming out the speakers?
Yeah.
And you think, oh, I didn't think I sounded like that. That's my voice. That kind of throws you, doesn't it, for the first gig? Of like, oh, perhaps some first gigs you haven't even got a microphone. But it was just, because it was a proper BBC thing, I was like, well, this is all very weird. But I was very much a kind of Jimmy Carr style one-liner comedian at that point. I just had jokes. I didn't know how to talk to an audience. Yeah, so I did that gig. Yeah, I mean, I didn't get through, obviously, because I was up against people who were clearly miles ahead of me in experience and talent. Yeah, so that was my first ever gig. And
Wow.
for the first year, I did about 6 gigs, and most of those were competitions because I just didn't know about how you get gigs.
And the first joke you wrote then, do you know what that was?
Am I allowed to be quite dark? Is that
Oh,
okay with this?
go on as far as you want, man.
Okay, let me try and remember this joke. I haven't told a joke in a year. My granddad used to say that a problem shared is a problem halved. He died of AIDS, my granddad.
Nice.
I don't do that joke anymore, but that was just a very Jimmy Carr-esque joke.
Did you do that at the BBC?
I did.
You said, I did. That's brilliant. You wouldn't get away with that now, would you? You wouldn't get through there.
God, that wouldn't have got through.
No.
I mean, thinking back now, when I grew up, stand-up comedy was this alternative thing. It used to be on late at night after Match of the Day or on random BBC Two programmes. It wasn't the mainstream thing it is now. So I think when I started, there probably wasn't that many comics applying to the BBC. Whereas now I think there'd be a lot more, there'd be thousands. So I think possibly I got in just because numbers. So for the first year, maybe 2 years, I was doing one-liners, but I don't do them anymore.
And what year was that you applied for that?
2004, 2005.
Amazing first gig.
So I was 20, 21.
Wow. How many shows have you done, Dave?
What, full on?
Festival shows?
I want to say 3.
I know we've got like a wonderful name for one of the shows, which is Beige Against the Machine. What a brilliant name. I love that.
Yeah, I don't know how you found like naming shows.
Yeah.
That told me a lot. So I did that at the Brighton Festival, which is a brilliant comedy festival, which I hope comes back. And what I realised was, that's kind of a double-edged sword. It was really good at getting people in. Like the Saturday night show I did is the only show I've ever done where I had to start late because they had to bring in extra chairs.
Brilliant.
And I could tell, it's people have been flicking through the brochure and it's a funny name, isn't it? And Brighton kind of gets that. And so that was good. But with reviews and critics, they used that against me. So because I'd used the word beige, they then kind of said, well, he's not doing anything different. He's not reinventing comedy. This is a kind of, you can see this kind of comedy in any kind of comedy club. And I kind of thought, well, yeah, I didn't say, the poster doesn't say I'm reinventing comedy. A very good lesson on like what you put out there. Sometimes it can be twisted and put against you.
Yeah, you worry about that as well, don't you? It's like, especially with the name, they can just twist it around your neck and strangle you with it, isn't it? That's what they can do in the reviews sometimes.
Yeah, it's almost like an album, isn't it? Like the album title isn't really what the album's about. It's something to get people in the door or just some kind of tag. It doesn't mean the show is all about that. I mean, there's many comedy specials I've watched on Netflix where I think, I don't understand why is this called this? Because there's no mention of this. There's no story about this.
There's maybe one joke in there that relates to the the theme. It's like you've got, was it Norman? But yeah, Norm Macdonald. That's it. Hitler's dog, isn't it? And he's got a joke about Hitler's dog, and that's the only link. That is it. It's funny, isn't it? But did the audience like your show, the Beige Against the Machine?
The one on the Saturday night, I had a group of friends come. that was, again, the kind of pivotal moment, if we're talking origins, in that, well, the first Edinburgh show I did half an hour, which is a standard thing, isn't it? You do half hour with someone else. And that was brilliant. I mean, it was hard going. And do you reckon Edinburgh will come back this year, or will it be next year?
I don't know, man. I don't know if I'll go up again, to be honest, Dave. I had enough of it. I've been up 4 times, and I don't know if it's going to do me any favours. In first, I'll tell you this now. Before last year, the lockdown happened, I was travelling all over, just doing gigs, just enjoying myself travelling and just seeing different parts of the world and just, seeing if the stuff works in different places. And I was having a great time. But Edinburgh, I wasn't enjoying it anymore. So in the answer to your question, I was like, I don't really mind if it does or not. I know a lot of people use it. It works for some people, but not for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very similar. I've done 3, maybe 4 Edinburghs. I think the first one I only did 2 weeks. And I just basically did other people's gigs, just to get a feel of it. But similarly, I think every comedian should do it, just because you should. It's an incredible training camp. Like that month, I know that month the first month I did, really improved me as a comic. It was tough, and halfway through I wanted to go home, because you just live and breathe comedy. There's no escapism. You get up, you go into the centre, and then that is your day. Yeah. You're flyering, you're doing gigs, you're going to do other gigs. It's just very intense. But I didn't realise till I came away from the first Edinburgh I did, and then got to September, October, and other people were saying, you've really improved. You can see it. You're just completely on it and just gone to another level because of that intense
grind
training for a month.
That's it.
But I get to a point now where I think, as you say, it's 20 grand at least. There's so many comics there, and there's this thing called the internet. I think Edinburgh used to be the only way, or one of the main ways. I'm not sure it is anymore. There are very tech savvy kind of comics that come along who just bypass it completely and become very successful very quickly because they're very aware of how to find an audience online. I'm not sure being in a basement in Edinburgh in August and paying 20 grand for the privilege is gonna, unless you're an incredible amount of luck, but also an amazing show, kind of zeitgeist show that suddenly people get interested in, and you get I don't see how you can really
profit from it in any way. It's like career wise or monetary wise. It's like it feels that the model is made. It's like a pyramid scheme. It feels like. Do you know what I mean? Some people get in and get out and get money. Other people are just the chumps, I feel sometimes, but as I say, you're paying to hone your craft up there for the first couple of years, and I think that it's a necessary evil at the beginning.
Definitely, as I say, I would recommend anyone. To me, you've got to do it at least once, and got to do the whole festival. You've just got to, just an experience. It's
Absolutely.
An experience I'll remember all my life. But also, I also think it's kind of earning your stripes. You come out the other end of a full Edinburgh, you're a comedian. Yeah. Doesn't matter how well that Edinburgh went. If you're willing to go through that and come out the other side and carry on being a comic, you're a comedian. You're in. One bad gig isn't going to stop you.
That's it. Where was your room in Edinburgh that first year?
Again, this is perhaps says a lot about me. So I went the usual kind of free festival stuff. What I was offered, I thought, there's no point. One thing I was offered was a football stadium that wasn't in Edinburgh. And I thought, well, no, I Googled it and thought that it's like 5 miles from Edinburgh. That's not being part of the festival. Yeah. So I found my own venue. It was with, I think it was called Paradise something.
All right.
And they did musicals and drama. But I got the downstairs basement of their main theatre, but it had proper theatre seating, like 40, 50 seats.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, me and the other guy, the other 2 guys actually, that were doing the show, were like, wow, I don't know how we've got this. But yeah, it was amazing I'm trying to remember what name it was. It was just off the Royal Mile, but I know that's pretty much every gig. Yeah. But it was a hidden little gem. Nice. And, well, we flyed very cleverly. Are you any good at flyering? I get the impression you're probably quite good at flyering.
I'm not bad, yeah. Sometimes when you do your flyering, they see who you are there, and then they go to see your show, and you're a different person.
I always feel really guilty, because I remember getting this couple. I literally spent 20 minutes on them on the high street. Yeah. Got them in, and they sat right in my eye line, and I could see they were just having an awful time. Oh, no. I'd ruined their evening. Yeah. And even though the gig was going all right and most of the room was laughing, I could just see them, and I was like, oh god. So what we did was, as soon as we got enough money in the bucket, we just went round and let people. I mean, you don't have to even let them. You know, when you turn a corner, someone fires you. Anyone we thought was good, we'd stop them and go, "How much are you getting paid an hour?" Okay, we'll pay you £1 more, and we got people to fly for us, and that seemed to really work. Because people think, oh, this person must be pretty good if they've got people flying for them. And there is that depressing moment where you hand someone a flyer with your own face on it. It's just like, hi. Look, it's like a kid going, look, I'm going to do a show in the front room. It's just,
I made this.
From a performer, if you're a performer, before a show, you should be thinking about the show. You shouldn't be standing in the rain till the last second, worrying about if the show's going to happen or not. It's not a good place to start the show from.
It ruins the showbiz element to it, doesn't it, really? I mean, well, I say that my first Edinburgh I did on my own was in the marquee, they called it, but it was actually a tent in the Free Sisters, you know,
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, well, you know what, right? I think it was nicer when I remember it was the yurt. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes, I did a compilation show there.
Lovely when it was the yurt, but now when it was the marquee, it was just like at the night it became the outside toilet. But my show was at 3 o'clock in the day, and the guy after me was just a clown so he was just doing mime, and like about halfway through the run, he was like, I'm sick, I gotta go, because it was so noisy. It was just like, you know, that was so distracting for everyone that came to the show. Your show, what was the name of your show? The first one, when you did like a 3-hander.
Dave Bailey and Friends,
right.
Comedy Hour, something as awful as
that. Yeah. Who'd you do it with?
Stu Richards. Do you know Stu Richards?
Stu Richards. Yes, I do.
And Martin Byrne.
Yeah.
Who was a Scottish comic.
Yes, I know him.
It was amazing, right? So I was going to do the show with someone else, and then they had a problem. They had to have an operation, so they pulled out, and we'd already set up most of the stuff. So it was that kind of moment like, oh, is this fate? Should I not do it? So then our good friend Chortle, you remember that?
Yeah.
That website?
Yeah.
I put a post on there when they used to let you put posts on there. It was eye-opening because the stuff I was sent, I mean, Stu and mine were the best two by a distance. One person sent me a video of them, like literally like a Zoom call, and it was just like watching a man have a nervous breakdown. And I was thinking, is this what you send promoters?
Yeah.
Is this your best? Or they'd send me a video of them at some shitty open mic gig, dying on their arse in front of 4 people. And I would think, is this your best video? You're better not sending a video, because then I'll assume you're pretty good. Now I've seen that, no. But yeah, Stu, I met Stu before, and I say Martin lived in Edinburgh, so that just made it easier because he was already there.
Great.
But they're two brilliant comedians. It's that great thing of doing it with other people that I can't imagine. Did you say your first one you did on your own?
First one that I did on my own was in 2017.
Okay.
But like my first one I did was with, do you remember Nick Root?
Oh yeah, the name is ringing a bell. Yeah.
Nick Root and Albie Flowers. Do you remember him?
Oh yes.
We had the gig we had was the Jekyll and Hyde at quarter to 12 at night for the whole month.
Yeah, we were 10 o'clock to 11, and I regret doing that. It's just on the cusp. I mean, it's incredible. Edinburgh on a Saturday night is a different place, isn't it?
Yeah.
You walk into town going, it's going to be a fight. The whole of Edinburgh is going to be a fight. Once I stopped the show, the audience had been quite loud throughout, and I was supposed to do half hour, and about 10 minutes in, I just looked at them and went, they were being really nice to a degree. One of those audiences that just wanted it to be the show. And I said, look, should we just go to the pub? Big cheer, and I just stopped the show because I just thought there's no point. You can sit there politely for 20 minutes, but we all just want to go to the pub, so let's just do that.
Yeah.
So that was one Saturday, and then one Sunday we cancelled it because it was really like properly Edinburgh raining, and the streets were empty, and we were standing in the rain, and we just looked at each other and went, this ain't going to happen, is it? So but every other night we had audiences. So
nice, that's good. So what was the other shows that you went to Edinburgh with?
There was Say Something, Beige Against the Machine, and then Dave Bailey and Friends.
So the other 3 were your own shows?
Nice. Say Something was kind of about mental health, the male suicide rate, which I know sounds like 2 great comedy subjects. Beige Against the Machine was basically a greatest hits of someone that hadn't released any singles. But
Yeah.
it was basically, I just wanted to get all my best bits into a show together, which again, I think, looking back, was a mistake, because I think people were expecting from this show for it to be about politics, and it wasn't. I don't really do politics. And I'm a bit like you now. I'm kind of, I'm not, well, it depends what the festivals are like and if people are going to be allowed to stand next to each other. I've kind of gone out the other side of festivals, and now I've kind of, before lockdown, I've been doing a lot of 20-minute sets, opening spots, and just, I've kind of gone away from doing a whole hour. It's strange, isn't it? When I think back, the thought of doing an hour, you just think that's impossible. That's, how are you going to remember all that? Yet, once you've done it a couple of times, you realise actually, in many ways, it's easier, because you always feel like you're trying to cram stuff in. If you're doing a 10, I mean, fives, I always struggle with fives, because I just think by the time you've got going, you've got to stop. And it's, unless you've got a really good one-liner to start, it's just really hard to get going. And I actually find an hour or 20 minutes, half hour, less nerve-wracking, because I think it's fine. We'll have enough time for them to get me and for me to get them, and me to do this at the pace that I want to do it, and so I don't feel I'm rushing.
And which was your favourite show out of those 3 that you did?
Well, as a show, I would say Something. I felt like, although it was quite common at the time, and it still is, for people to talk about mental health issues and serious issues, it felt like, I've got to a point as a comic where I'm talking about subjects that aren't just silly subjects, and these are important. As trite as it sounds, I had a couple of people come up to me afterwards and tell me about, especially men, tell me stuff about their life, and I thought, that's a nice thing that they've come out and they remember this show. Literally, they were listening and they were taking something from it. Whereas sometimes it can feel a bit ethereal, can't it? It's like, we had a joke and a laugh, but it's all gone now. It doesn't really mean anything. It's all just silly.
That's right.
But they found a bit more substance to that. Whereas the one where I did the first show with Stu and Martin, that was fun, but for a different reason. It was like a gang. So the 3 of us were putting a show on every night together. Because as ever with stand-up, you can sometimes feel very isolated and like it's all on us to get everything in place. We take all the joy, we take all the heartache. So it was quite nice to be in a little gang of just, it's us against them.
Yeah, very much so. Because you're very low energy, Dave, aren't you?
Yeah, I would. Well, yeah, but I get easily distracted, which probably this podcast is proving. So if something happens in the room, a number of people have said my face lights up.
Great.
As if I go, yeah, now it's party time. And I walk and I go and I'm happy to derail my act and put that to one side and go, okay, let's go over here. I mean, I'm trying to remember the last time we did a gig together. Was it Canterbury? Would it be?
Oh, yeah, it was Canterbury. Yeah, it was that far back, yeah.
Because you're brilliant at that. You are brilliant of just owning the room. Within 30 seconds, you've got the room. It's in your back pocket and you're in charge. And I would say I'm more, slow burner. But if something happens in the room, then I'm kind of happy to play around and go, okay, let's do this then. This is happening now. Because I've seen so many acts where they have their act, they've memorised their act, and they're going to do their act. And you can tell the audience is fading away, they're not getting any laughs, and the act is just doing their act. You think you're not in the room, you're not connecting with these human beings. They're not listening to you, you're just remembering stuff. That's why they're not laughing. You need to break out of your act and be present in the room. And that's probably one of the many reasons why I stopped being a one-liner comic, is I felt like I didn't need to be there. I could write the jokes down on a bit of paper, hand them to the guy in the front and go, pass that when you've read it to the next person along.
That's it.
And as a performer, I just found it very boring. I remember seeing Jimmy Carr at Hammersmith Apollo, and my favourite bits were when he wasn't doing one-liners, when he was just talking to the audience or dealing with hecklers. I thought, this is brilliant. But when the 10 minutes of him doing one-liners, you just get a bit fatigued of like, da-da-da-da-da, set up, pause, da-da-da-da-da, punchline. Do you think it just gets a bit too formulaic and like, once you work, it's like someone doing a crossword over and over again. You kind of go, I know how this works now. Yeah,
that's right. I remember when I first started, I watched Milton Jones, and I could only get through about half an hour of it, and my brain I was like, I've got to stop watching this. I can't. I'm sure it's funny, but my brain has just switched off. I'm numb to it now. It's very, very hard to get through that. every 15 minutes of one-liners, you need a bit of a break for get a drink or something and a bit of something to eat, and then go back again with fresh eyes, fresh ears.
It's just an incredible. Also, the other thing is I couldn't keep up the writing of that many one-liners. It's so frustrating to work so hard on a one-liner and then go, well, that's 10 seconds. I need another 30 of those.
Yeah. I mean, your first gig was with the BBC New Comedy Awards, right? It went well then, right? It did go well, apart from the fact that you didn't get through.
I look back now and I didn't tell anyone. So apart from my best mate, who obviously was there when the phone call came through, no one in my family knew that I'd gone off and done this. And I mean, I've looked back on school books and stuff, and I wrote in my school books, things we have to put, like where you want to be and all that stuff, and what job do you want to do, which is a ridiculous question to ask any teenager. They don't know up from down, let alone what they want to do for the rest of their lives. Yeah. I'd written comedian, but it seemed so another planet. Like that. No, that's. I grew up watching comedy in the 90s. Yeah. And as I say, it was all alternative and late night, and they seemed like magical people. I mean, you look back now and realise actually they're not. They're still some of my favourite comedians from that era, but it just seemed like I'm such a comedy fan. Just the fact that I was doing it was like, oh, this is fun. Yeah. I didn't think I'd be able to do this, and then so that's probably why that first couple of years I didn't really push it, because I was like, oh, this is just a novelty. But it did feel good for someone at the BBC to go, well, you're funny. Yeah.
And so it went well though? Did you remember when you were on stage that you enjoyed it, that you laughed and had a good time, or was it like, was it the quickening when you got up there on the stage?
I can remember hearing my voice, that threw me, but I didn't feel like I was out of my depth. And I often say this to newer acts that come up to people like me and you when we've done gigs, and they've just died on their arse, and they kind of look to us like we're some kind of professor. It's like, well, you weren't funny. That's the main thing there, mate. Yeah. But what I say now is, in day-to-day life, like ever since I was a little boy, it's my natural inclination to go to funny. Yeah. Like, I say things that pop into my head and people laugh, and that's always been there ever since I was a little boy, all the way through school, jobs. I can just do it. So it felt like, well, there are many areas of my life where I feel out of my depth, low self-esteem, no confidence. With comedy, for some reason, it's always just been like, no, the evidence would suggest that I can do this. Great. And I mean, we've all had gigs where you die on your ass, but I'm consistently enough getting laughs. What I did feel on stage, which again perhaps links to the one-liner stuff, in those first 20, 30, 40 gigs when I was doing one-liners, I felt, that I wasn't there, that I was telling jokes, but there was a different part of my brain watching me going, you're funnier than this, Dave. Yep. You're funnier than that joke. If you just said something now. And I can remember the first few times of people heckling or something happening in the room and me reacting and suddenly hearing a different laughter, of like a proper guttural laughter, not just a polite, that was amusing, but a proper, and thinking, oh, I want that. That's the laughter I want. That proper, in the moment, proper from the deep gut, as opposed to a kind of, I can see what you've done there. Oh, that's a clever play on words. Probably that all played away in me. I've been listening to this podcast. I mean, you've had some incredible guests. I feel honoured, by the way, especially Adam Bloom. Wow. Yeah, Adam Bloom is one of my all-time favourites. Brilliant. Amazing joke writer. I'm interested in, when I love comedy, in that what makes you become a comedian, I find fascinating. Because you must have met people, I've met so many, especially on open mic nights, where you think, why are you here? Who has told you you're funny? Where is this coming from? Some of the least funny people I've ever met have been at comedy nights. Some of the funniest people I've ever met have been at comedy nights, but you just think, some people, how are you here? But also the style of people, like, why are you doing that style of comedy? Why is it? Why have you landed on that? Or that comic that we've all met in the green room, who is hilarious, holding court, telling stories, being hilarious. They go on stage, they're the least funny person in the room. And you think, what happened there in that 5 steps? You clearly got something, but you're not doing that on stage. I think that's what I realised doing one-liners, like, I can do this, but it's not where my natural funniness comes from. So it probably put me back a couple of years in that I was getting decent gigs doing that, but I thought, yeah, but I don't enjoy this. This isn't the other side where I'm mucking about and being a bit more in the moment and saying things that I think and feel and have observed. That feels more me, and I can just feel the connection with an audience more that way, and I'm getting more out of it. So
you've been going since 2004 then, right? So tell me what your worst gig then. What is the gig that you just go, you look back and go, oh my God, this is horrific?
there's so many to choose from. Oh, well, I know. Okay, yeah, because this one still haunts me. It was down in Brighton. It was a Mexican restaurant.
Right.
And it was about 5:30. And I walked in, and it's a full restaurant, people eating away, everything. I walked to the back of the room, and there's this little guy who looks like he could be from a sitcom.
Right.
Broken English. And I said, oh, is comedy? And he went, oh, yeah. Wait there. So I stood at the bar. I stood at the bar for a good 10 minutes. And I was thinking, oh, perhaps I'm a bit early. Is this probably a room upstairs or downstairs? Okay, fair enough. Then all of a sudden, he goes behind the bar, grabs a mic, like a karaoke mic. It's, when it's so loud that it's vibrating, just echoing, it's painful to hear. And he screams into it, comedy! And then hands me the mic. There's just a restaurant. There's no stage. There's a restaurant. There's also kind of jingly, jangly, Mexican-y music being played in the background.
Great.
No one has turned to look at me. And I'm there going, is this happening?
Wow.
So I started talking, but obviously, I don't know if a lot of people in the room weren't, English wasn't their normal language, but they were just ignoring me. Yeah. So I did probably, it felt like 5 minutes, probably a minute. And then I looked across at the guy and went, sorry, can you turn the music down? And he kind of went, And he went to turn the music down and he turned it up. So now it was like really loud, like ear-bleedingly loud.
Yeah.
Then all the people turned round and started moaning at me. Like I was, like somehow this was my act. I was some kind of avant-garde act where I was trying to make everyone listen to me. And I looked across and went, mate, can you turn the sound off? He went, and he was just fiddling away. Yeah. And I looked around at the room and I thought, oh, this is mental. What is happening? Yeah. And it's daylight outside. And I'm thinking, is this a dream? At this point, I'd done hundreds of gigs and I thought I'd seen it all. And then in a split second, I don't walk off stage, but I wasn't on stage. I just looked at the mate. I looked at this guy and handed him the mic and went, this isn't a gig, mate. Grabbed my bag and just walked straight out. And just 2 seconds later, I was walking down Brighton and thinking, did that happen?
Wow.
And then even better, as I was walking back to my car, I bumped into another comedian who was on their way to do that gig.
Did you warn them or did you let them go?
I warned them, and they still went towards the venue. Oh. That is what that's how mental us comedians are. Oh, Dave's exaggerating. So God knows what that poor person walked into.
Man, played an Indian restaurant years ago, when like maybe about 2 years in or something, and I was very, very new, and like exactly the same setup. There was no focal point. We got free curry. That was the only plus of the whole thing. That was our rider, and there was no payment, just curry. And I was like, fine. I think it was like there was a couple of more seasoned comics. Like I could see him eating his curry really quickly, and I was like, why getting that curry down you so fast? It's like, well, look, I've seen this gig like already. We got to eat our food quick before they realize that this is not a gig and it's going to go horribly. So they're not going to pay any more out or give us any more free stuff. They're going to kick us out as soon as possible. But yeah, they didn't have it again. Weirdly, yeah.
That's what I love about comedians, though, as well. So that guy, and we know something is like we've done it. When you've done it enough, you can walk in and feel it, can't you? And go, this is going to be one. But we don't walk away. We go, well, I'm here. Yeah. They're paying me, or I feel like I should at least give it a go, or it'd be rude to leave, or we still put ourselves through it, knowing what's about to happen. Yeah. Although I've had the flip where you think, oh, this is a bad crowd. I remember I was having a group of lads once, and I thought, oh, they're going to be trouble. I was like, could hear them at the bar, thinking, oh God. And that was in my head when I went on stage. So I deliberately didn't look at them. I just, other side of the room. They laughed more than anyone else that night. And then afterwards came over to me and were saying nice things. And were some of the nicest people I've ever met. And that was a real lesson of like, don't judge people, Dave, before you start.
That's it.
The friendly looking person over there could be a right arsehole, and the guy that looks like he's going to headbutt you could be a lovely man. Don't just let the audience be the audience.
That's it.
And then we'll work it out afterwards. But don't judge them before you've even started.
That's right, man. That's right. In the years of doing it, there's a question I ask everyone, right? If you listen to the podcast, you know I ask this question. It's a difficult question. But Sean Mio, for example, when he goes on stage and around the country, he sees himself as like a gun for hire, like a gunslinger, if you like, like or a Ronin for hire. What do you see yourself when you go on stage as? I've had some things like IT technicians, all this kind of stuff. So it could be anything. It could be a job. It can be a mythical creature, like the kind of model potentially you build your comedy persona on.
So how do I perceive the version of me on stage?
Yeah, and you can disappear up your own arse completely. Don't worry.
Okay. I would say the version of me on stage is the relaxed Dave, as weird as that sounds, in that when I've kind of maybe had a couple of drinks or I'm with friends that I've known for a long time, you'll get kind of 100% me. I will say exactly what I think, because that's the other thing with stand-up I found, is that in polite conversation, like social obedience, you don't want to take control of it, do you? So you'll be funny, you'll say something funny, and then you'll back off a bit and let someone else have a go or say something. Although it does amaze me when people tell stories and they're not funny. Does it amaze you? You think, you just died on your ass. Why did you waste 3 minutes of our time telling us that story? Yeah. You literally just went to the supermarket. Why are you telling me that? So I think, it's kind of the best version of me, which in day-to-day life you would find annoying after 10 minutes. But on stage, it's allowed to happen. I'm allowed to exaggerate. I'm allowed to go to the third joke, the fourth joke. I'm allowed to act it out. I'm allowed to be a little bit more cocky than I would be in normal life. I mean, I've done gigs in pubs where if I was walking past and needed a piss, I'd piss myself rather than go into that pub and use their toilet. But if you put a microphone in the corner, I will go in and I will be as confident as you like and try and, own the room. And I've said things to people from stage which I would never say to them in day-to-day life. I wouldn't have the confidence or the, as I say, social obedience. You think, I can't really say that. But for some reason, in a comedy gig, you can. It's kind of everyone's in on the joke, hopefully. So I kind of like the version of me on stage, but he would be exhausting 24 hours a day. Or even as your mate, you'd go, all right, Dave, calm down. It's kind of what I'm finding now is that I miss that version of Dave. It's kind of a release. So my day-to-day life, it's all going on in the background, and then I get to go on stage and it all kind of comes out and I get to be that character for a little while and then come off stage. But it is still built on me. Did that answer the question?
That's fine. Not everyone uses models to kind of picture themselves as the comedian soul, if you like. You're just the Dave on a good night out sort of thing, yeah?
Yeah, and also, based on what you just said, I'm very much of the view that this is all silly. So when I come on stage, I'm not someone who's going to go, let me tell you about the world. I've read some books. The systems, the man. Let me tell you about the man. The man's ruining everything. I've always gone on with that slight kind of twinkle in my eye of, this is all a bit silly, isn't it? I mean, you've come out to listen to someone speak for an evening, and I'm just going to say some silly things now, and then we're going to go on with the rest of our lives. As much as I take it seriously, I kind of realise this is all just a bit silly, and it's, we're all going to get up tomorrow. It's not life and death. It's not, and I don't know if that's me trying to make it justifiable to me. So I'm more relaxed, and if I'm more relaxed, I perform better. I certainly want people to have a good time, but there is a part of me that is a bit of a git.
Yeah.
And perhaps this is why I'm certain ways of. I've had other comics say to me about like dealing with hecklers and stuff. I sometimes really take it personally when the gig is going well and some arsehole is trying to ruin it for everyone. If I'm ruining it for everyone, that's on me. I put myself in this position. If I'm not being funny, that's all on me. But this is going well. Everyone else is having fun. I know I'm doing my job, and you're trying to ruin this. Then I become a bit more, no. If you're not enjoying this, go, leave. It's not for you to derail this for everyone else. So there's kind of a mixture there of wanting to please, but also a feeling of kind of self-worth of like, no, I know this is good. It's fine. I know I've done these jokes before. There's enough evidence to suggest that these things I'm saying now are funny. So sometimes you kind of think, well, I know comedy's subjective, but certain people you kind of think, yeah, you could have Billy Connolly here right now and you won't be laughing. I can see it in
Yeah,
your eyes. There's
yeah,
something else happening here. You've just come out to. It's like kind of Twitter trolls, isn't it? You just kind
yeah.
of think there's another ulterior motive here.
Maybe they're just filled with fear and they can't do it themselves, is what it is. I think generally, they're maybe a very creative person, but they haven't pursued it because they're still afraid. And they just can't get off that mind loop they're just stuck on. They come to see comedy because they might love comedy, but they're like, it's just watching you going, I could do that. Well, then fucking do it, mate. Not here.
What are you like after gigs?
Energy wise, can I sleep? That kind of thing.
Yeah, the adrenaline, but also, are you like hypercritical, or are you like?
Like I used to write a diary on every single gig up to about 900 gigs. I wrote a little small, like bullet points of whatever went well and whatever it was. And I was like, then after that, after 900, I was like, this is getting ridiculous now. I know how it went. I know what I need to do. I don't need to do this anymore. So I was hypercritical. Yeah, I was so desperate to get it right, get it perfect. And then I kind of went, well, you know what, right? The best of what you said before. I think you have the great attitude when you go up there. You go, I know this works, and you need to kind of hope it goes well, but not try to control it, and just kind of go up there. You've done the work, just throw it away. You can't control everything.
Yeah, it's something I've learned. It took a depressingly long time to learn. Is the being funny bit should be a given,
Mm.
basically, and to me that's the fun bit. Writing the funny bits is the fun bit, and the performing. But what's key is looking confident and not arrogant, but confident. If you look like you know what you're doing and speak in a tone, an audience relaxes and goes, "Oh, this person, we're comfortable." However, if you come on not confident and don't look them directly in the face, or general direction, or you just parrot the stuff you've learnt at home and
Mm.
not engage with anything, I think that's when it starts to go downward very quickly. If
That's
you're
it.
in the room confident, it took me a long time to realise that it's so much easier to do gigs with better comedians because
Yeah.
you're walking out into a happy room. If you can follow 5 people that aren't funny at an open mic night, then you can definitely do a comedy club because you're walking into a happy room. They assume you know what you're doing until you prove you can't.
Yeah.
So go on confident.
You got picked for Pick of the Fringe Brighton show, right? Twice.
I think it might have done, yeah.
And you've got a quote here as well. It says, "Definitely
God, you've
funny."
really done your research, haven't you?
Every
I
every
mean, I know we're in lockdown,
uh,
but we're
def-
on Netflix.
definitely funny and loads of good gags. BAFTA. Where's that from?
Well, you know how some of us comedians kind of use quotes?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wrote a sitcom
Oh,
for a BAFTA competition, and it got through the couple of rounds, but it didn't get anywhere after that.
great.
But as part of getting through, you get a report back, like a writer's report from the judges that have read it.
Brilliant.
And so some of the quotes, yeah, I've used because I thought having the word BAFTA on a poster would be useful.
Amazing. That's great, man. Have you hawked that sitcom around any other places?
Oh, I've written so many sitcoms. My laptop
Yeah.
is full of sitcoms.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I found that now in lockdown. I've suddenly realised. Are you writing a lot in lockdown?
I wrote a sitcom in the first lockdown. Second lockdown, I just kind of went, okay, fine, whatever, and then put together my next show, which is a bit darker because I did Squeaky last 2 years, so I did a clean show, and then because I wanted to see if I could test myself to write a full clean hour, and that was fine. And then I was like, okay, as you said, when you said earlier when you're doing some stuff, you go, okay, this is fine, it works, but I want to go a little bit more darker into my soul. And then
Yeah.
all the stuff started bubbling up randomly. When I was writing the clean, I was like, oh, this is clean, but this is horrific clean. So I'm like, this is interesting. Okay, I can maybe work on this. And so I put it all into a new hour. That was what I did in set lockdown 2. For lockdown 3, the last week or so, I've done about 3 days of what's it called, current affairs stuff.
Okay, yeah.
And I've been just sort of like writing one-liners for that, and just sort of maybe because I want to kind of get some other writing credits under my belt, just kind of send stuff off to Newsjack, and I've got a couple of jokes on the HuffPo.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very similar. You kind of send stuff out into the ether, and
Yeah,
it's so hard. But I found the first lockdown, I had an incredible writer's block, like
Oh.
never before. And I don't know if it's because I suddenly thought, you now got all this time, you should be writing, and I felt incredibly guilty. But I was like, I can't think of anything funny. Nothing feels funny at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm not gigging, so I'm not going to match fit. As the year went by, and certainly started this year, I've suddenly just got loads. I mean, my phone is full of ideas.
Great.
I've got at least 20 new little bits. I mean, they're not all
Nice.
going to work, but when we finally, hopefully, ever get back to doing stand-up again, I've got all these new bits. And I suddenly think, oh, that's if I was gigging all the time and had my day-to-day life, I
Yeah.
don't think I'd have the time to have come up with all this stuff. So there's kind of a blessing in that. And it's also like my brain is in the background going, Dave's going to need this when we get back to doing gigs, so
Yeah.
I'll churn it out now.
Little bits pop up, and sometimes getting time to go through your notes to go, actually, that's a really good bit. Why haven't I put that? Oh yeah, that's great. I'll put that in with the other stuff, and then it percolates, and then I think that the little bit of separation from your material re-energizes the joy for the art, really.
Yeah, especially because before lockdown, I was doing a lot of 20-minute opening sets. And you kind of, especially if you're getting paid, you
Yeah.
feel like an obligation to like, I can't do new material.
Yeah.
They're paying me to do 20 minutes.
That's
So
right.
you have, this is the bit I start with, then I
Yeah.
do this bit, and then I always end with this bit. So you kind of get, it's almost a job at that point where you kind of think, well, I've got an obligation for 20 minutes and I'm not going to mess about because I could try a new bit in the middle.
Yeah.
But if that 5 minutes goes bad, it's going to look bad and I might not get another 20-minute opening spot.
That's
So
right.
I need to,
Smash it.
but as you say, lockdown means I can now look back and go, actually, I think that bit of material is better than that bit in the 20. So I can
Yeah.
take that out. You get to play around with it, which if you're gigging all the time, I think that time to do that.
You get locked on, don't you? Have you written loads of sitcoms? Do you submit them to the BBC and stuff all the time, or?
I've got one at the moment for a radio thing, but it's just a competition thing,
Yeah.
which I wrote at the end of last year. And I've shown it to a couple of friends and that, and assuming that it doesn't go anywhere with this competition
Yeah.
because of the terms and conditions, they have right to it, don't they, until the end of the competition.
Right.
I've reread it a couple of times and gone over it and thought, actually, of all the things I've written, I really like this. This feels like I can see this as a comedy fan, TV. I
Great.
can hear this. I mean, it's not perfect, but as a first draft,
Yeah.
there's something in this. So I'm thinking, again, depending on how this year goes gig-wise, it's like I'm going to really try and write more episodes of this and try and get something going with this. Maybe look to do it myself online if that's
Oh,
possible.
yeah.
Because
Great.
it kind of feels like and I'm fairly sure I've written enough of these scripts now to think this is a good premise and I think I can see this working. So yeah, that's that side. And on the stand-up side, well, when's the last gig that you did?
Well, after it eased, after lockdown 1, we had a bit of a breathing space in September, and I had a gig in Hungerford Comedy Club. It was in tennis courts up in Hungerford, and I think that was October.
And how was it? So that was outside?
It was actually really nice. It was actually lovely. We all took our own mics. Adam Bloom's closing, myself, Lee Hudson was opening. I was in the middle. They were a lovely crowd, kind of all separated, socially distanced and everything. And yeah, it was in a tennis court, man, with some decent speakers. It was great.
Yeah, because I was a bit apprehensive because I hadn't gigged since March. And I did a first couple back in, I think, the end of September was,
Yeah.
we were allowed to, wasn't it?
Mm.
And the last gig I did was just before lockdown too. So I think October, late October. But I was doing, a number of gigs with the same promoter. And I was very I'm not sure people are ready to laugh. And it was indoors, but socially distanced.
Yeah.
And people wearing masks. And it was just a very surreal standing at the back of the room thinking, this feels, I've done
Yeah.
hundreds, probably over 1,000 gigs. This feels different. Really, and it's the longest since I started that I haven't gigged.
Same.
And you can only go, right, I have to remember how to do this. Within 30 seconds, all of my fears were allayed because I was
Yeah.
like, they were laughing so hard.
Yeah.
You know those gigs where you think, I'm funny.
Great.
I'm not this funny. Come on, guys. They were determined to have fun.
Brilliant.
And any kind of morsel of humour, they were grabbing hold of it.
Mm.
And it was an absolute joy. And I just thought, oh, this is good. All that's horrific that's happened in the last year, it feels like audiences are now really, really want to laugh and really determined to have a good time. And some stupid mask isn't going to stop them or some virus.
Yeah.
So that's kind of kept me going. I think, when we do hopefully get back this year, I have a feeling audiences are going to be really up for it now.
That's great. Yeah, they need the comic relief, man. Yeah, their just lives have been paused, and we need to all laugh at something, don't we? Need to just kind of let it out, man. It's we're all been frustrated the last couple of years or so. Well, it's come on in 2 years now, isn't it? So,
But it's also really made me appreciate, because you can get blasé with stuff, can't you?
yeah,
Kind of the privilege of doing it
absolutely.
and what I get out of it. I don't know about you. Sometimes I think, why am I doing this? Why do I need to stand up in front of strangers?
Yeah,
But I've kind of come to a good place where I think, no, I do this because I really enjoy doing it, and I seem to be quite good at it. So why would I not do it? I see some people, and I think, you know the acts. Whenever I've seen you, you look like you're having the time of your life. I mean, you may be an incredible actor, but you look like you're having the time of your life, and you completely own a room. But some acts you see, and they're being sick in the toilet, and they look like pale as anything, and then they go on and they're not very good, and then they come off, and then 2 days later you see them at another gig. You think, why are you putting yourself through this? What are you getting from this? So I think I've come to a place now where hopefully when we get back to comedy, I'm going to really appreciate it and really kind of be a bit more focused on, like, no, this is good. Even the bad gigs, this is a privilege to do this.
yeah, totally. You walk back to that Mexican restaurant and go, when's the next show?
I would never ever go back to that gig. As I say, I'm usually. What are you like at when the gig's going bad? Do you stand your ground, or do you?
I'll tell you. Okay, I'll give you an example for when a gig has gone really bad for me. The one that would make sense in this country. I had a gig in down in the West Country somewhere. It was Brexiteer country, and I made a little silly joke. It wasn't even a political joke. I'm not a political comedian at all, and it was a silly joke about Brexit. But as soon as I mentioned the word Brexit, it was my opening line. It was like, oh fuck! I dug myself a giant bottomless pit to try and get out of, and I spent like I spent the next 19 minutes trying to dig my way out of this hole. It was one of those gigs when all the seats are set up, and they're basically everyone's facing each other, but they're on long tables, if you know what I mean.
Oh god, yeah.
They were already pissed off the food hadn't arrived. I went off with a Brexit joke. Then they hated me for the next, I say, 17 minutes. I made them laugh, and I didn't really carry it well, to be honest. That time, it was a battle. When they laughed, I was like, didn't expect that, did you? Shouldn't have said that. I was basically vomiting bile on myself and destroying my own act. You know, I was like, but I learned a lot at that gig. It was so silly. You know, it was just like I made it a hard gig that didn't have to be, but I decided to drop that joke forever.
Probably for the best.
Yeah, but it was like,
because it's a weird mix, isn't it? I've had that. Right, if they're not going to go for that material, that's kind of that's what I do. And it's that weird thing of like, right, okay, I'll try another bit and see, okay. And if you think, oh, that's quite a strong bit, and they're not really going for that, and you think, I've got 15 more minutes here.
Yeah.
Right. So I tend to, at that point, throw my act out the window.
Oh, yeah.
And just kind of MC and just kind of go, okay, let's see what you've got in the audience.
Yeah.
And try and think, well, let's be funny that way. I remember seeing this really posh, I think he went to Oxford, proper, what you would imagine. And he had pages and pages of stuff, of material that he was reading backstage. I was thinking, it's too late now, mate, you should know this. And he went out, and a bit like you, he was talking about politics.
Yeah.
And it was like a proper working men's club.
Oh, no.
Like people in West Ham shirts. So I was thinking, don't.
Yeah.
You already look like a posh boy.
Yeah.
And he kept talking to them about politics. Oh, you don't like the politics, do you? Oh, yeah.
Take the hint,
like
innit?
you, mate. And he's like, you don't, mate doesn't sound right in your mouth. And he went on for 45 minutes.
Oh, my God.
People were getting up, going out, going to the bar. And I was like, you've got to tap out, mate.
Yeah.
You need a plan B here. You either acknowledge that you're dying and get off the stage.
Yeah.
Or you talk to the audience and just be human and say, this isn't my world. I'm from a very upper class world. I don't even know. There's a raffle tonight. You've never been to a raffle, have you? You just get everything for free. So it's just like, I always struggle with that. It's like, no, but I have come here to do an act.
Yeah.
But these people aren't going to enjoy the act. So at some point there has to be okay, put that away and I have an obligation to some degree to the promoter, and I don't want to die on my arse.
Yeah.
I've tried. I've had 2 goes.
Yeah.
That bit's the strong bit. That didn't even get anything.
Yeah.
My only other option now is to kind of go a bit off piece and let's just see what happens in the room. Because
Yeah.
I'm fairly sure I can get something better than you're getting from the material. I sometimes think that by derailing myself or going, okay, I'm going to put my act to one side and let's just see what happens in the room. In that moment, it's good, but it's not making me a better all-round comic, and it's not finding me an audience of perhaps if I stuck to my act, some people would hate it, but more people would love it because I've stuck with it, as opposed to kind of just playing to everyone and being a bit broader. It's harder to kind of stand out that way, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess
No pun
so.
intended.
Have you been writing a new show in the lockdown, apart from the sitcoms?
Well, I've got two 20-minute sets, which I can do pretty much. I mean, it's amazing the memory recall that I didn't gig for months. And then when I started getting some gigs in the diary, I kind of got my notes out, and it automatically, my brain went, oh, this is this bit. As soon as I did the first line,
Yeah.
we're off again. So I've got those two 20-minute sets. But like you were referring to, I've kind of stepped back from them and gone, I think I can do funnier than that. I think I can make that joke better. Or I think this new material would fit in there perfectly, and I think it's funnier. So as opposed to writing a whole new hour, I think the other side of this, I'm just going to look to really beef up my 20-minute sets, half-hour sets, and have it just really tight, really like every bit of material's got to justify its place. It's not just there to eat up the time. It's there because it's the best bit of material I've got for that bit.
You launched into TikTok yet, or?
I'm not that good at technology, but there are, as I say, with the sitcom, I am thinking if I reach out to people that perhaps are better at this or know more of it, I'm thinking there are other ways, social media ways of promoting whatever it is that I do, because I really struggle with that. The networking side, it just feels grubby. I mean, so much so that I can have a really good gig, right? I won't say I smashed it because I hate when people say that, but I can have a good gig, right? I've got consistent laughs for whatever time I was supposed to do, perhaps one or two applause breaks, and there's a couple of people who wanted to say nice things to me after the gig, right? So to me, that's enough evidence. I had a good gig. I still now feel really awkward going to the promoter and going, so can I come back and do another one, or perhaps do longer, or can I headline? That conversation, I just feel really, I don't know, are you good at that stuff?
Yeah, the schmoozing, it's just you feel I'm either too keen or like I'm not talking to them. I'm just don't want to go and bug them or be that idiot.
Oh god, yeah, I'm sure many people that we both know have thought that of me.
I think email's the best. Yeah, as you say, it's grubby.
Because there's no kind of set rules as well. You kind of like, I don't know how this. It's the weird thing with stand-up comedy. I don't know how this works. All we have to do is be funny. That's evidence for everyone in the room. So you kind of think, you kind of perhaps again naively think, well, the promoter can see I did well because they were in the room and people were laughing. So isn't it on them to come back to us? But then do we have to push? Obviously, we have to push ourselves forward. I mean, I've seen some really confident people around promoters, and I look at them and think, but you were average at best then. But they have such a swagger about them and confidence that they seem to somehow be able to just go up to a promoter and just, literally diary in hand and kind of catch the promoter off guard. I mean, I did have one where, have you ever had this? This really kind of plays with your mind. So it's all kind of subjective, isn't it? But you can hear laughter, so you can tell if something's going well or not, just generally in life. You come off stage, you think, I've had a good gig there, that was fun. Then the promoter comes up to you and pulls you to one side and tells you about all the things you didn't do well. Says, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, you think, right, sorry, what? And I'm never sure how because I would take that from another comic.
Yeah.
But from someone who's just like, not a comic promoter, an actual promoter, I think, right, I kind of feel like I should be listening to you because you're a promoter, but you're also just a promoter. And I'm a comic, and I know my act, and I know when I've done well, and they were laughing. So is it that I'm not the comic you want me to be, which is fair enough. It's your night. If you don't want the kind of comedy I do, fair enough, don't book me again. But are you trying to mould me into a comic that you want to see? That's a different thing, isn't it? I struggle with that. Like, feedback's good, but I think you have to have some kind of self-worth to go, no, I'm in charge of this, and Otherwise, I think you'd kind of go down a dark hole of kind of constantly changing the
Yeah.
style of comedy you do.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, this might be taking it too far, but
Mm.
a comedian I don't find funny, if they come up to me to talk about comedy or ask, suggest something about my act or ask about their act, I will happily talk to them and happily listen to their advice because they're a comic and they've been there on the front line. When someone who's not a comic starts giving you feedback, I struggle with that, to go, well, you don't know, you haven't, until you stood there in that light with that microphone and tried this, you don't know that.
Absolutely. You haven't got the you haven't paid your dues, man. That's what it is, eh?
And also, we are kind of, if you were a comic and you did stand there, you would know how fragile we are,
Yeah.
and how hypersensitive we are.
Yeah.
Because in that situation, you just are. You feel everything. So you would know that feedback like this doesn't help. Certainly straight after a gig.
That's it.
Because it's like trying to explain to someone how to drive a car after a car accident. It's like, not now, because I'm still going through this. The adrenaline's still through my body. I don't even know what I just said.
Yeah.
I'm still processing all that. I won't know till I drive home what the gig was like, and probably not until tomorrow morning. So any pearls of wisdom you give me now are not going to stay in my head, because it's not taking anything in at the moment.
So I'm going to ask you, where can we find you?
I'm on Twitter at Dave Bailey Comic. I'm tweeting a lot more at the moment. Again, I think that's probably because I'm not gigging. And I also have my own podcast, if I can say that.
Of course you can. What's it called?
The Mind Fart Podcast.
Nice.
It's like a weekly thing. It's mainly to do with new music. So I do that. And I think this, again, I say I'm not going to promote myself. I think I've still got a Facebook page. But,
Dave Bailey on Facebook, at Dave Bailey Comic, Twitter.
It's always Dave, not David. So yeah, it must be Dave Bailey Comedian.
Great.
Probably Twitter is the easier one, because I put the podcast out via Twitter.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, Dave, it's been a pleasure to speak to you for an hour and a bit, man, about comedy. And hopefully, when all thaws, we'll be gigging together.
Well, yes, thank you. And thanks for, as I say, thanks for asking me to do this. It's an honour, because I've always been a fan.
Well, thanks, Dave. Thanks for coming on, man. It was an absolute pleasure, man.
And I look forward to the day we do gigs again together.
Me too, man. Me too. And that was episode 106 with the very funny Dave Bailey. He's on Twitter as at Dave Bailey Comic. You can also find his podcast, which is called the Mind Fart Podcast. It's all over the place where you can get your good podcasts from. You can also follow us. We're on Facebook. You go to Facebook, type in the Comedy Defect Podcast, and you can like the page, follow the group. And also, if you like this podcast enough and you want to tell your friends about it, you can just share your favorite episode, because it tells people where we are and what we're up to. And if you like this podcast, if you really like it and you want to donate, you can go to Patreon, type in the Comedy Defect Podcast, and donate as much as you feel this podcast is worth. But if you can't donate, that's okay. As I said before, just share your favorite episode. Tell people where we are and what we're up to. That's all I'm going to say for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be back with you at the end of February for the next episode, which is a very funny comic. I know him for a few years, and he is absolutely killing it right now. It is, of course, the joke machine, the fantastic gag writer that he is, Don Biswas. And that's at the end of February for episode 107. And I hope you got through January all right. And if you started up an exercise regime, you're stretching. You're not kind of killing yourself and hurting yourself too much. Look, you're supposed to enjoy it too, you know? And I know there's more joy to be had in the middle of February for Valentine's Day if you are with somebody or if you are not with somebody. Look, there are for and against for both sides of that coin. So look, try to be grateful for whatever side you're on. That's getting a whole can of worms there. Anyway, look, we'll see you at the end of February. Don Biswas, episode 107. Until then, well, Happy New Year, guys.